Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Fronteras. I'm Edmundo Resendez. How do you define wellness? Is it simply not being sick, or is it a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being? On today's Fronteras, A Changing America, we will learn about the 4 pillars of wellness: nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress management, with our special guest, NMSU Professor Raquel Garzon. Professor Garzon, welcome to Fronteras.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Let's start out the conversation by having you define the 4 pillars of wellness.
Well, I think you defined them pretty well there,
Okay.
but it's about nutrition, how you eat, and what that does to us on many levels. Exercise, and once again, how that transforms us in many different ways. Sleep, and the impact that has on how we feel and how we perform. And then also our ability to manage our stress or to become stronger and more resilient.
So why is it so difficult to develop an effective wellness program? It seems like every December rolls around, we have the tamales, we have a lot of food, and then we decide, well, come January, I'm going to start with an exercise program. And then January rolls around and things happen, and it all falls by the wayside. Why is it so difficult for people to stick to a wellness program?
Well, plain and simple, we're human beings. And as human beings, we're really programmed to do what feels good, in the moment, and then to avoid things that are a lot of extra work or hard to do. So if you can imagine, you have tasty food in front of you, that brain that we have just says, eat what you love. And then when it comes to doing things like exercise, which takes hard work and effort, the body or the brain says, sitting home and watching TV just sounds so much better. So we're naturally programmed that way. And so in order to do those difficult things around wellness, we really have to challenge ourselves to know why we're doing it, and then also how we're going to structure our mind around doing those things.
What are some myths about wellness?
Oh man, there's so many myths about wellness. I think.
What are the top 3 myths?
Oh, that's even hard to narrow. I think that, a lot of people will say, these things are out of my control. I can't help it. It's genetics that's causing these issues, or it's my really bad environment that's causing this, or it's my family or my job that stresses me out. And a lot of times people remove themselves from taking personal responsibility to some degree. Although those things are influencers, it's not the only thing that matters. And so that's one of those things. Second is I think people believe that there is this magic secret out there to being well.
I get often asked, I have large family, and through social media, they're always starting out a new fad diet.
Yes, and they believe this is it.
This is it. This is going to be
the
the miracle one.
Yeah, so people are always looking for that, and they believe it exists out there somewhere. It's
Does
like that holy grail of.
Yeah, does it exist?
I mean, something exists for you that you can do that will work for you to help you to feel better and have energy. But it's not as simple as just saying, oh, it's this one diet, or it's this one, way of eating, or it's, exercise plan secret, or a pill that's in a bottle. It's just not that, it's not that simple. And so what I tell people is, instead of spending so much time and money looking for that and testing all of these things out, it's start listening to yourself and really realizing what makes you feel good, what helps give you energy, what doesn't cause those energy losses or sleepiness or feeling bloated or whatever it might be. It's really listening to yourself and being honest with yourself.
Let's talk about a fad diet that I've been, again, through social media, I've been keeping an eye on, and that's the ketogenic diet.
The ketogenic diet,
Ketogenic diet, the keto diet.
The keto, yeah.
Keto, what is that?
So the keto diet, it's been around for a really long time, probably since the 1960s. It's a very high fat, virtually no carbohydrate, low protein diet. And it was originally developed to help control seizures, mostly in children. Now people are using it for a lot of different reasons, one of which is weight loss. Now, It can cause some weight loss as a side effect of doing it, but I always tell people it shouldn't be the primary reason why you follow a ketogenic diet. There could be benefits of a ketogenic diet for certain people, perhaps that have neurologic conditions, maybe Parkinson's or tremors, maybe brain cancer that is being used for that. There have also been some studies to show that it can help slow down brain aging. So for people who are interested in their cognition, neurodegenerative types of issues, it could be useful for that, and even for type 2 diabetes it's been shown to be helpful or useful, but it's very difficult to follow, and it's not one of those diets that you can be like, oh, today I'm on it, tomorrow I'm not. It doesn't work like that, and so that's what's challenging about it. You have to commit and follow it, and if you follow it, there are certain benefits, but certainly risks that may come along with it. So you should be working with a dietitian or a professional when you do a diet like that.
So let's talk about steps. What's the first step to committing to getting on a wellness program? Because we're not talking about a diet, we're talking
Right.
about a wellness program.
Yes.
What's the first step to committing to a wellness program?
It's really understanding why you want to, and I think you know this. I like to talk about purpose with everybody, and they're like, we're here to talk about eating. And I'm like, no, let's start with purpose, And what's so important about that is that if you don't know why you want to make difficult changes, it makes it hard from a sustainability perspective. When times get tough, if you don't have a good reason for doing something, you're just gonna slip back to your old routines. So having a sense of who and what matters and why wellness is critical, how is it gonna help me as a person? How is it gonna help the people that are most important to me? If you can leverage a higher purpose for being well, it makes it a lot easier to go through these tough times when you're being tempted with food, when you feel like sleeping in instead of exercising, when you just want to blow up and have this reaction instead of calming yourself and becoming centered. That purpose really helps you to stay grounded in what matters to you in making tough decisions.
How important is sleep in our lives?
Oh.
You hear about people that say, oh, I can get by on 3 hours of sleep, get up bright and
Yes.
early in the morning, stay up
The badge
all
of
late.
courage,
The
right?
badge of courage.
Yeah.
And it seems that, some of these people consider other people that sleep too much. What is
be
too much
wimps,
sleep?
right?
To be wimps.
Right.
What is too much sleep and what is not enough sleep?
Yeah, so for most adults, the recommendation is to sleep 7 to 9 hours per night. And there's lots of people that swear that they do fine on less hours. It's not supported by the science and research. So for people that sleep less than that, they may be just getting by with what they think is the right amount, or maybe they're not realizing that they're not at their best potential or performance. So when they do actual cognitive studies, when they're doing performance-based studies, people who don't sleep at least 7 hours don't do as well. And apart from that, it has huge implications from a health perspective. So cardiometabolic risk factors, so heart attack, diabetes, increased cancer risk, all kinds of issues, but you don't feel those. You don't say, man, I didn't get enough sleep. It feels like I might have a heart attack sometime. I mean, you're not gonna feel that. But over time, not getting sleep has implications because during sleep, there's all of this restorative processes going on within the body, within the brain. And so little by little, as we don't get enough sleep, we're causing what I would call either micro damage or we're missing out on something that's going to restore us in some way. And so over time, that plays out just like everything else. One meal isn't going to kill you. It's what it plays out over time. The fact that you didn't exercise today doesn't kill you, but over time, if that's how you establish your habits, it plays out over time. And sleep, I'm gonna tell you, is a cornerstone of health, wellness, performance, productivity. It's huge. I think everybody should go through sleep courses. That's how important it is.
Well, is there such a thing as too much sleep, taking a nap in the middle of the day? I mean, that used to be frowned upon, but now in some places it's recommended.
It is, and there is such a thing as too much sleep, and it could be that people are sleeping too much because they're not getting high quality sleep, which then makes you try to sleep more to compensate for that. Napping can be good. There are studies that show that taking a 20 to 30 minute nap in the mid-afternoon hours can be extremely helpful. You feel better and it increases productivity. And for people who are shift workers who are not sleeping at the normal hours that they're supposed to, studies show that they should be sleeping 1 or 2 hour naps in the middle of their waking working hours, which might be in their middle of the shift. And so I always joke that companies should actually, in some cases, be paying their workers to actually sleep on the job, because it would improve performance, productivity, reduce errors and safety types of issues. So, I mean, it really is a big deal.
Let's talk about probiotics.
We're just going to jump to the probiotics.
Yeah, well, we only have, one of the things we're going to be doing, we're unveiling here, is that you're going to be joining us on Fronteras on a monthly basis to do a segment called Be Well with Raquel. So today we're introducing you as a way to introduce the segments, which are going to be coming up at the end of our shows. But in looking at probiotics, how important are they in their lives? I know that I don't take probiotics.
Yes. A lot of people ask me about supplements. They'll say, which supplement should I take? And I'm like, oh, it's really hard to recommend supplements and generalize them. But one of the ones that I really can generalize and say that everybody should consider taking is a probiotic. And the reason is that there are so many things that we do or that are in our environment that can negatively influence the bacteria that's living in our gut. I mean, that's like a whole other thing to talk about the 3 to 5 pounds of bacteria that's living inside of your gut.
3 to 5 pounds?
Yes.
Okay.
3 to 5 pounds of bacteria, and we actually have more bacterial cells than human cells. So you and I are more bacterial than we are human.
Okay.
And that bacteria carries DNA, and that impacts our health. And so people obsess about their own genetics, and I'm like, forget your own genetics. Let's worry about the bacterial genetics that you're carrying, which you can change. So if you've got too much bad bacteria and that's having a bad influence it can influence your health, your sleep, your eating behaviors, depression, anxiety. It's so robust what our bacteria influence. And you can change that. I always say, just change your gut bacteria. You can't change your genes. So probiotics are helpful bacteria. Those are bacteria that do a variety of different things, and each bacterial strain has its own role. So you want to get different bacterial strains in your probiotic. They each play a different role. But you also want to understand what's good for our gut bacteria and what's bad for our gut bacteria. So that's a whole other, I mean, I have a whole hour presentation on just that topic.
Well, where do you find good probiotics?
Generally,
where do you find them naturally?
Yes, so naturally, like in food. So yogurt is your classic example of where you would find probiotics. It has limited amounts of biodiversity, meaning different bacterial strains. So a lot of times that's great to start off with, but if you want different bacterial strains, getting the probiotic supplement can help. For people who don't consume dairy, because there are a lot of people who cannot have dairy, kombucha, for example, which is a drink, just like it could be a drinkable yogurt, but it doesn't have any dairy in it. It's made from tea. And so the kombucha tea also has active strains of bacteria, just like the yogurt, but it's a non-dairy version of that. Yeah. And fermented products are a great way to get good bacteria.
Fermented products?
Fermented products,
Would
yeah.
beer count?
That's generally not one that we put on the list. And that's only because alcohol can have a negative impact on your gut bacteria. So you'd want to look for, fermented foods like kimchi, for example, which is a Korean cabbage that's fermented, or pickles, and it'll say on there whether it has bacterial species in it, but anything that's fermented. So if you like to ferment cabbage, that's a great way to do it.
Okay, but not beer. Okay.
I wouldn't count that, but nice try.
Well, here's the challenge I have is listening to my body.
Yes.
How do you train yourself to listen to your body? That's, again, is I set myself in, I've talked to you off air about this, is I prepare to go see my doctor, I crash for a whole month. I mean, I cheat for an entire month.
Let's clarify.
Yes. How do you train yourself to listen to your body so that you can remain consistent with the wellness program?
I think it's a process. We're so used to having external influencers determine what we're supposed to be doing. So, we're dictated by our clocks and our time. We go to work at a certain time, lunch is at a certain time. There's a plate in front of us. We're taught to clean our plates. Those are all external factors. So turning internally to say, am I hungry? Am I sleepy? Am I tired? What am I feeling? The best way to do that is to practice mindfulness, which I'm going to cover in one of those segments that I'm doing, where you practice turning kind of inward and listening to the thoughts in your head. What am I feeling? What's going on? Because a lot of times we can be clouded by, again, these external factors. You go to the movies and your brain just says eat popcorn and get some candy, right? But that's not what your body is saying. That's just what your mind is used to. So by doing more internal work, being more aware, becoming more mindful, being mindful of your triggers, you can just get better at knowing yourself. And I'm going to tell you that's one of the most important things that you can do for yourself as you age, as your health status might change. You know yourself best. Your body will communicate with you if you take the time to listen to it.
Let's talk about stress management. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that people have, because there's stress everywhere. There's stress at home, there's stress at work, there's stress in just driving around town, in particular when there's heat. How do you develop a stress management routine?
Yes. Another big question, because that's a 4-hour program I have.
A 4-hour program.
So, yes.
Okay, can you give it to us in 4 minutes?
Sure. Well, the first thing is just the way that the context of it. You know, you said we have stress at work, we have stress at home, we have stress driving. And honestly, stress is actually just within our own minds. There is no stress out there. We create that by the meaning that we give the things that are going on around us. So there's traffic, and the fact is there's traffic. You're the one who creates stress out of it. Oh, no, and I'm going to be late, and what are you doing, and why are you driving in this lane? That's all us. And so part of the stress management programs that we offer is about understanding how our mind works and how it interprets information, what it does with that information, and the response that we decide to have, which we have a choice over. So you can get upset or not upset in traffic. Right? There's people that are just like, okay, I'll just sing along. And then there's other people that are like, and they're having a meltdown.
I've gone through periods in my life where when I lived in Houston, which was a big city, I could not handle driving in the traffic. My stress level would just rise.
But you totally could after going through the resiliency program.
Okay.
Because it teaches you these skills. So the ability to withstand pressures in your environment, chaos in your environment, whatever it might be going on, those are skills, and those are skills that can be trained. They're not, but you can't just say, I'm just going to do better with stress, because it's the same thing as just saying, I think I'm going to make my muscles bigger, and then just hope it happens, you know. So just like you have to go to the gym and work out or lift weights to make your muscles bigger, in order to be able to build a stronger mind against what could be potential stressors or an environment, there are training techniques that you use for that. And that's what that resiliency program is that we offer. It's 4 hours because there are so many different techniques that we use, but the most important is training our minds.
Training our minds.
Training our minds.
Okay, so I'm going to work on training the mind. Let's talk about strength training. Is there a difference between strength training for men and for women?
No.
No?
No. But that might be a great myth, though. So a lot of times women will say, no, I don't want to strength train because I don't want to be all bulky, you know, like a man. And really what determines our bulk as far as size is hormones. There's differences between male and female, but also just our genetic potential. So we know that there are women who just are naturally more muscular and others who are not. But the recommendations around strength or resistance training are the same for men and women. It's really the same whether you're young, middle-aged, or older. It's just that your starting point is going to be different. So if you're an older person that's never done resistance training, the recommendations are still the same, but the weight that you're starting off with is just appropriate for your level. But you still should train all of your body parts. You should do it at least two times a week minimum. You should still work hard, so the muscles should feel challenged. None of that changes based on age or gender.
Well, let's talk about age. Is there different wellness programs for somebody that's 35 versus 65?
There will be variations based on where they're starting. So, you know, and age isn't the only determinant. You could have a 35-year-old who has a lot of health conditions and is very sedentary and might be starting off at a lower level than a 65-year-old who's been really active and doing a lot of different things. So it's less about age and more about where your current capabilities are and where you'd like to go. But for example, for an elderly person, you know, and maybe not even 65, maybe older, it might be issues with balance, and agility, making sure that we're working on things to prevent falls, where if you're younger, you're just less likely to have those issues, although you could still have those issues. If you've never worked out, you might have balance or agility types of issues. So honestly, age is really, it's just a biological number, but it really doesn't translate to, oh gosh, you can't do that, you're 65. It doesn't really work like that, which is kind of cool.
Let's talk about Be Well with Raquel, a segment we're going to be introducing right here on Fronteras. What are the segments going to focus on? What are you looking to do? What kind of guests will you be having?
Well, for these first segments, what I wanted to do was focus on what I call the foundations of wellness. So instead of getting into details on nutrition or exercise specifically, it's what are those foundational skills that we want to have in order to be able to then start doing exercise or eating. And so we're going to be talking about purpose, because you know how passionate I am and how important I think that is. We're also going to be talking about mindset, which once again is a huge determinant of what it is that we're going to do. Whether I'm going to eat right or not is not a function of my mouth, it's a function of my mind. And so I want to talk about mindset, and then the other thing is mindfulness and that internal awareness. Because if you don't build that, you're always depending on outside things to tell you what to do, and those may not be right. So I consider those 3 critical foundational elements of wellness.
Where can people find you?
Where can people find me?
Well, yes, I know you travel around the state, right?
Well, I work at NMSU and Cooperative Extension Services, so you can find me there. You may give my email address.
Go for it.
It's rgarzon@nmsu.edu.
Okay.
And that's probably the easiest way.
Okay, so there's wellness programs throughout the state for people in different counties. They can reach out to their Cooperative Extension Service
Yes,
office.
we have offices in every single county. We have agents in those counties that help facilitate the programming of these wellness programs. So find out in your county if you're watching this and you're interested in wellness programming. Just contact Cooperative Extension in your county and we can go from there.
Okay, Raquel, I want to thank you very much for
Thank you
joining us
very
on Fronteras.
much.
Well, today we begin a new segment. It's a new feature on Fronteras at Changing America. It's Be Well with Raquel. Today looking at personal purpose.
Welcome to Be Well with Raquel. I'm Dr. Raquel Garzon, Wellness Specialist for Cooperative Extension at New Mexico State University. Today's segment is focused on one of the foundations of wellness, personal purpose. And with me today is Dr. Bryce Jorgensen, a specialist in cooperative extension at New Mexico State University with specific expertise in personal success. Welcome, Bryce. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
You know, Bryce, when I work with people and I find that they're trying to work on eating or exercising or sleep or anything like that, that having them connect to personal purpose and figure out what it is and leveraging it is really key to success in these areas.
Right.
Now, you have expertise in a lot of things: money management, goal setting, productivity, career success, happiness. How important is personal purpose in those areas that you work in?
Personal purpose is critical. I mean, it's the why behind what we do. It's hard to accomplish much if we don't know why we're doing it. And so all of us want to have a life of meaning, of contribution, of purpose. And in order to do that, we have to understand why is it that we are doing those things. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to go through the hard times, the hard things that we need to do, whether it's exercise or saving money or investing, if we don't know really the purpose behind why we're doing it.
Great, so it's pretty similar.
Yes.
So, people struggle with healthy behaviors, and in part it's because they're not really making the connection to that personal purpose. They're not leveraging that. And so I'm sure you see this in your field because you just spoke about it, but can you give a specific example?
Sure, so I see this all the time. A lot of times people are trying to find success by climbing the corporate ladder or getting more stuff, getting a nicer car, a nicer house, more stuff, just whatever they think is going to make them happy. And then they get there and they ask, is this all there is? They think that they're going to be happy, but they're not. And the problem is a lot of times they are sacrificing things that are truly meaningful, like their relationships, a marriage, time with their children, just to get there. And so they're climbing this ladder and they get to the top and find out it's against the wrong wall. And they've given so much and sacrificed so much. And that's all because they don't have the purpose in the first place.
Yeah, so it's very similar to what I find. I recently had a client that had tried to quit smoking a whole bunch of times and had gone back to smoking. And he told a story about his 5-year-old. He would always send her away every time he would smoke. He would say, go play over there because I don't want you to be near my cigarette smoke. And so one day she says to him, Daddy, if you didn't smoke, we could spend a lot more time together. And he said that he never smoked again after that day. And it really shows you the power of purpose because it almost makes what seems impossible possible to do. Do you have an example of something like that also in your field?
You bet, yeah. So I do financial coaching and life coaching, and one of my clients, he was working a lot and saying to his wife and children that it was for them and that he needed to work a lot, and really he didn't need to work that much. And so his wife finally came and said, look, we need you at home. I want you home 4 times a week for dinner. We want you when you're home to be home, not working. I need you to be participating in the children's activities more. I would rather have you in your time than the extra income and the extra promotions. And he thought about it and said, you know what, she's right. So he focused more at work. He was actually more productive with less time at work, and he was able to prioritize his family and his wife, which did great benefits for him later on.
Yeah, that's great. So a lot of people struggle with trying to figure out what their purpose is, or how do I use it in everyday life? And so I have this list of questions that I give people to get them started on figuring out what that purpose is. And I'm sure you have some great techniques. So what is some advice that you can give our viewers if they want to discover purpose? You know, what are some methods that they can use?
So there's lots of different questions, like you said, or techniques. One is to picture yourself at your own funeral. And someone that you know really well and that knows you really well is speaking about your life and how meaningful it was. What would you want them to say about you? What do you want to hear them saying? And are you congruent? Are you living your life congruent with what you want them to say? Another one you think about is, in your future, you're retired, maybe you're 65, and you've lived a perfect life. If you're already 65, maybe 5 or 10 years down the road, and you've lived this perfect life, what does that look like to you? If your perfect life has been lived, what is that? And write those things down, and that kind of gives you the meaning and the purpose. And then it gives you the power to say yes to those things that will allow you to have that perfect life, and no to all the distractions that really just take you away from things that really are meaningful in life.
And that is great advice from Bryce. Thank you for being here and sharing your experiences with personal purpose.
You bet.
We hope that you've taken something of value from this segment on Be Well with Raquel. Join us next time as we discuss another important foundation of wellness, mindset. Thank you, and be well.